You either die a hero, or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Of course, this Dark Knight quote talks about how, within the context of the Dark Knight, that you either do something good and be remembered for it, fading away for whatever reason, or pulling off a one-trick pony act that people always remember you for, or keep on doing things and eventually gain popularity, gain steam, and people will then begin to see you badly when too many people have conflicting views. What this quote signifies is the sad truth about public opinion of mainstream media. When the word mainstream is thrown out, it's almost near synonymous, near equatable to the term generic, bland. What's funny about the word generic is a term that refers to a type of thing, belonging to a type of thing. It's a common thing that you see reoccurring. But terms like generic and mainstream have become so pejorative in their use because when they're used now, they're used to refer to things that are bad. How often has somebody brought up the point that games like Call of Duty and Dead Space, they're mainstream and generic, or TV shows like, and this one's really the shot in the dark for me, like Spartacus are generic and bland and so on, because all they do is recycle the same old ideas and cliches and so on, that when something is mainstream, that it's bad, and the only way to have anything creative is to be from the underground, or whatever that means. Part of this discussion, well, this talk I'm doing right now, spawned from watching Giguk's latest video, pronounced that wrong, Giguk's latest video, which talks about anime becoming mainstream. It was a great video. He expressed his point great, and I agree with pretty much everything he said. There's a lot of people in the comment section who, I should have seen this coming, I don't know why I didn't. A lot of people in the comment section who, while they were giving their reasons why or not they want anime to become mainstream, there was a lot of anti-mainstream sentiment. Now, Giguk, as most people would do since it's the popular opinion, ironically, gave the example that mainstream media, spawns things like Call of Duty, and that the only original things come from indie developer. And while that point was lightly glossed over, and it wasn't really trying to demonize Call of Duty or Call of Duty players, or trying to say that indie games are better, sadly, and I hate to say this, because I did respect that video, it's the one thing I didn't like about that video, because it echoes the anti-mainstream sentiment. And while he wasn't, as I said, Giguk himself was not attacking Call of Duty or mainstream media, it sadly regurgitates the same popular opinion. And the reason why I said irony is because isn't it the ironic popular opinion, the mainstream opinion, that mainstream is bad? And if hipsters are hipsters, and hipsters hate anything mainstream, when will we get hipsters that start hating people who hate mainstream? Because really, hipsterism is an encroachment of itself. Because if, by definition, it should hate something that's popular, and only like things that are, are undervalued, or the underdogs, then shouldn't hipsterism start to eat itself? Because hipsterism is a thing now. It's a popular thing. Everybody knows what it is, but won't hipsters then begin to not like other hipsters because they're too in now? That aside, point, put to the foreground for now, the background, sorry. The thing about the dislike of mainstream media that truly bothers me is how mainstream as a word, as a term, as a general idea has become synonymous with bad. That anything that makes a lot of money or does really well is somehow a bad thing. And to me, that's so strange an opinion, because first of all, we can't make value judgments on that alone. The amount of money something makes, a game, music, a movie, or whatever, should not be synonymous with its worth, because that's subjective. That comes down to the individual. A terrible movie in terms of either budget or income could be a cult classic. A high-budget action flick could end up being completely terrible. But in a similar way, a high-budget action flick could end up being good, or a high-budget TV show can end up being loved by most, like Game of Thrones. And the reason I say Game of Thrones specifically is in that video, in Gigarch's video, mind you, he mentioned how we've got mainstream TV shows like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones which are immensely popular and doing immensely well. And even though people in the comments of his video were saying if anime became mainstream, then it would just become bland and generic and it'd become watered down. And I'm like, but how is that? He just gave the example that we have high quality such as, you know, Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones. How are we going to lose quality if anime becomes mainstream? Shouldn't anime become, you know, better? It's already good as it is. It's already amazing. It's getting better each time. There's a market for everything. You know, we can have our really amazing production quality Attack on Titan type animes, but it doesn't mean we'll lose anything else. It doesn't mean we'll lose uniqueness. It doesn't mean that every anime will become the same or watered down. Just look at mainstream media right now. We've got your, you know, more sophisticated, more complex Game of Thrones, but you've got your more dude bro, more in-your-face, ridiculous Spartacus. And the point is that if this idea that mainstream is so bad, and mainstream is just a blob that absorbs everything and ruins it, then how would these shows like The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, and Breaking Bad, why would they be doing so well? Why would so many people like them? Now, it feels to me that this is where the bias comes in. Sometimes a person might say that, oh, but those shows are good. But it's like, then you just admitted that something that mainstream is good. Are you trying to say that it really is just bias? That if somebody likes it and it's mainstream, then it's fine. But if somebody doesn't like it and it's mainstream, then mainstream is bad. That's a terrible argument. That's a terrible way of expressing something. And it's completely, you know, unfair to a lot of things. A lot of music, a lot of games, a lot of movies, based on popularity or not, can be good or terrible. Now, I'm you know, don't quote me on this, but to list anime once again, an anime that was truly amazing, was truly phenomenal, to me, but it's probably one of the most underheard animes you could ever hear about. Like, literally, you might not have ever heard about this in your lifetime until I mention it. Is Serial Experiments Lain. Very old anime, very complex. Not necessarily on the intellectual level of maybe Ghost in the Shell, but it's one of those really up-there animes that really makes you think about a lot of stuff. And you probably wouldn't have heard of that. That's an underdog anime. But and then you might have more popular animes, I guess, such as I don't know, like Sword Art Online, to use a typical example, that people say that they didn't like, or they say that is just a terrible anime or whatever. I mean, I like it, but some people say that's bad. But in a similar way, we have popular, mind you, this anime is disturbingly popular. Popular animes like Attack on Titan, with amazing production quality, amazing story, amazing writing and animation. And that's mainstream. That's a really popular anime right now. But you could have lesser popular anime, such as My Buddha, which was just boring and uninteresting. I mean, if you like it, that's fine, but I mean, I just couldn't enjoy it. Because I like offbeat comedies, but this one was too strange for me to keep up with. So, mainstream does not equal bad, automatically. And I don't know why it's become this way. I mean, I don't want to go around calling people hipsters, but when people say stuff like, we should, you know, things shouldn't get popular because they'll be tainted by other people, that gaming has become watered down and easier, and now dude bros call themselves gamers because, you know, they play Call of Duty and FIFA, and they think it makes them gamers or whatever. And I think that kind of sentiment is so bad. There's the people, I mean, I'm sure people have heard, this happened in the gaming community a while back, the whole dirty casual thing, where it's like, casual players were unwelcome because gaming was a hardcore gamers crowd, and the fact that we was trying to appeal to like families and other people, that it wasn't welcome because it's watering down gaming. And that kind of sentiment is wrong. See, did the arrival of the Wii prevent games like, I don't know, like, let's talk about big budget games, AAA games. Did it prevent the Assassin's Creed and the Uncharted series? Did they just stop? Did those games drop in difficulty? No, they didn't. Those games still came out, and those games still did well. And of course, the Xbox embraced Kinect and so on, and so did PlayStation with the PlayStation Move. But this was to give people more variety. See, it's all about markets. When a market appears for something that can, get money, people will want to pay for that. People want to play their sports games, just as other people want to play their hardcore action shooters. Some people want to play their puzzle games on their iPads and iPhones, just as some people want to play, their Skyrims. We lose nothing from mainstream media. With mainstream media, things get attention. We now understand that there's different genres, that different people want different things. If anime became mainstream, we wouldn't lose anything, we wouldn't lose our uniqueness. We might be getting our Psycho Passes and our Attack on Titans, and our, things more along the lines of Death Note. But we're not going to lose anything else. We're not going to lose our Freezings and our To Love Rus and our High School DxDs. We're not going to lose that because there will be a market for everything. If anime became mainstream and accepted, then I think we'd have a lot of different things to choose from. We'd be getting stuff like Attack on Titan all the time, as I said, and that'd be a great thing. However, to say that mainstream equals bad and mainstream equals generic and bland, saying that we shouldn't want anything to become mainstream, is against progress. And this brings me to my next point about the whole hipsterism imploding on itself. People nowadays, not everybody mind you, this is just some people, give so much credit, so much big up to indie games, saying they're creative and original, unlike the generic and bland, mainstream games. First of all, there's a lot of things that are wrong with that. By giving indie games so much credit, you ignore this sometimes conceptual and systemic, not problems necessarily, but I don't know, cliches of indie games. A lot of these indie games, mind you, aren't actually doing anything new and original. A lot of them aren't. A lot of indie games like Fez, Braid, even Journey, these are all just platformers. Simple platformers, which we've seen billions of. The platforming genre has been done to death. But guess what? It's still fun. These indie games aren't original. These indie games aren't even really creative necessarily. They, of course, they mix up the bag and they add new things. Why we play these games isn't because they're original. I play Fez not because I've never played a platformer. I play Journey not because I've never played a platformer. I play Braid not because I've never played a time-jumping platformer. I play these games because they're fun. Because let's face it, these games are not original. These games have been around. Platforming has been around for years. But guess what? It's fun because of what it brings to the table. To me, indie games are becoming mainstream. Now, if that's blown your mind, then I hope my message has reached you, because the thing about indie games is, at what point does a game stop having that indie title? By indie, I don't mean by independent developer. I mean like the cliche of indie, i.e., original and non-mainstream. At what point can it hold that title when it continues to gain popularity until the point where it's so mainstream it's not even indie anymore? Look at Minecraft. That started out as an indie project. Is Minecraft an indie game right now? Is Minecraft a underheard about, undervalued, niche market game? I don't think so. But has Minecraft lost quality? Is Minecraft less of a game? Is Minecraft less enjoyable now that it's, mainstream? No, it's not. People love Minecraft. More people know about it. More people enjoy it. Same with Fez. Same with Journey. What if they made a Journey 2? Or Fez 2? Well, I guess that's not going to happen if Phil Fish left. But, when these games get sequels, can we still call them indie? See, if something becomes popular, do we hate it because it's popular, even though the thing itself is still good? Mind you, these series that people hate so much, like the Call of Duties and the FIFAs and the so on, did these games, were they born with a silver spoon in their mouth? Were they born with, millions of popularity? Was Call of Duty the leading FPS from the get-go? No, it wasn't. Call of Duty was kind of the game that was trying to be Medal of Honor, came after like the Battlefield era on PC, that was trying to cash in on the World War II thing, which, mind you, the World War II mainstream stuff was hella generic. It wasn't until Call of Duty 4 that this real splash began. Then subsequently World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2. Now, the Call of Duty series is this popular. Why? Because it gained steam after time and started to do really well. Something starts off small and gets better. It gains fans and it loses fans. That's the progression of something that's becoming successful. That's the way it works. Quality is debatable. What happens to the actual quality of the thing is down to whether or not you enjoy it. That's subjective. People love to aim at anything popular by saying it's popular, therefore it's bad. If that were the case, then who buys these things? And to me, I find it so insulting when people say the only people who listen to pop music are idiot people who don't have real taste. The only people who play games like Call of Duty are dude bros with no intellectual input in society. The only people who watch movies like Transformers are people who don't, have a good education or whatever. And to me, that's so insulting. People say that only kids buy into this stuff, or only uneducated people do. And that's the really frustrating thing about hipsterism, or, the people who hate mainstream. They become these really conceited, opinionated people who look down on anybody who enjoys these things. First of all, not everybody who watches these things only, or plays them, only enjoys these things specifically. They might enjoy other things. Similar with anime. Just because I like High School of the Dead doesn't mean I don't like Ghost in the Shell. Just because I like To Love Fruit doesn't mean I don't like Attack on Titan. I can like multiple things. Just as somebody who watches Transformers might go watch something like I'm trying to think of a really intellectually powerful movie, but it's hard to name one. I don't know. Maybe something Oscar winning like $1 Million Baby or something. Somebody who plays a certain type of game like Call of Duty doesn't mean they might not appreciate a game like The Last of Us, if you want to call that sophisticated or whatever. The point is that a lot of the time I see more and more people beginning to band together and look down on mainstream as if mainstream is a bad thing in and of itself, and that the only way to be hip and cool now is to hate against that and support indie, to be underground, that anime should stay underground, that indie games are the way of the future. Yes, because obviously when something starts off small, it stays that way, doesn't it? When an indie game becomes popular, it couldn't possibly be considered mainstream because it's still indie. Look what happened to Minecraft. Look what happened to Journey. Look what happened to Fez. These games did not stay still. Progression is a linear path. It's not a static area where you just bounce off the walls and stay put. No. When something becomes mainstream, it gains popularity, it gains exposure, more things learn about it, and either it becomes better in and of itself as a quality product, or it becomes worse. Whatever your bias, whatever your, hatred against pop music, against Call of Duty, against Transformers, you may judge its quality, you may judge everything about it, you may say I hate it, I hate the genre, I hate its style. You can be opposed to all of those things, but guess what? It gets money, people will buy it. These people aren't all the same 12-year-old kids screaming down the mic or whatever. These are different kinds of people who enjoy this entertainment medium. If anime became mainstream, perhaps the same thing might happen. We'd get more people liking different kinds of things. Mainstream media can be consumed by many. So when people band together to have this ironically popular opinion that mainstream is bad, are they going to begin to hate their own opinion? So what happens then? Hating the opinion that mainstream is bad becomes the new thing. So we kind of just went full circle, but then that becomes too popular. So then people say, nah, mainstream is bad. So, if that's the only thing you're basing your opinion on, then I'm sorry, you'll be running in circles for the rest of your life. People should form their opinions based on what they perceive to be the quality themselves. Not because it's mainstream or indie, because it's popular or unpopular. I'm sorry, I'm not going to like something just because it's unpopular, just because it's the underdog. I've seen some unpopular films, I've played some unpopular games, and I didn't like them. Because I didn't like them, not because they were indie or mainstream. I've played some mainstream games that were terrible, I've played some mainstream games that are amazing. I've seen some mainstream movies that were terrible, I've seen some mainstream movies that were amazing. I've watched some TV shows that were fantastic, and some TV shows I'd rather forget about. The fact is, to say that mainstream is synonymous with bland, bad, or generic is completely uncalled for. Because we're forgetting that when something becomes popular, it's because people like it. People enjoy it. See, it's as if we're forgetting concepts, conceptuality. If something's popular, doesn't that mean because there's a market for it, because people are liking it? People are consuming this media product? Would Call of Duty be making the millions of dollars because of magic, complete coincidence. There are people who are buying these games and playing them. There's people who are going out and watching these Transformers movies. You know, just as there's people tuning into Attack on Titan as we speak, there are people consuming this media because they enjoy it. The industry sees there's a market for it. The industry cashes in on it. That's how the industry works. You know, mainstream media is something that people enjoy. They want to watch Game of Thrones. They want to watch Breaking Bad. They want to watch The Walking Dead because these are things they enjoy. So to say it's bad purely because it's mainstream, well, quite frankly, I didn't know when this opinion became so mainstream. So that's just something I just wanted to talk about. Something I wanted to think about. And do I believe that anime should become mainstream? Well, I already commented in Gigguk's video about this, but I think that it shouldn't at the moment. I mean, I agree that maybe it's too soon. A part of me thinks it doesn't need to be mainstream necessarily speaking, because, as I said, it's about markets. If there's a market for a particular genre of something, then people can watch it. Quite frankly, anime is mainstream in Japan, well, to an extent, and depending on what the genre is, certain people are into it and certain people aren't. I feel like I don't really need to have... You know, there's a lot of obscure tastes I have personally. I don't think I need to have something to be mainstream to justify myself liking it. And if it became mainstream, it wouldn't hurt me in any way. Of course, there'd be still different types of anime that I can watch and enjoy, and different types of things that, you know, would appeal to me in different ways. So I think that if anime became mainstream, as long as the anime themselves are good, I wouldn't mind. Mainstream, as I explained in this talk, makes things, you know, gives them more exposure, gives the opportunity for more genres and more people to watch. But because of the nature of anime, it's too obscure in its execution for that many different kinds of people to like. That's why at the moment it's niche, because if it were mainstream, quote unquote, then lots of different people like it. And the only reason why that isn't the case is purely because of its execution. However, just look at how many people on the internet love anime. That's millions of people. So while it may not be mainstream in terms of like the market, in terms of like the Western like industry, it's mainstream in terms of cult popularity, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's something to be proud of. But if it became mainstream in the industry sense, would that be a bad thing? Well, no, because if society could accept it, then we'll have our freezings, we'll have our high school DxDs, but we'll also have our Attack on Titans and Death Notes, and I think that's a great thing. If people can accept that, then, you know, we'd have stuff like this happening on TV that we can easily tune into all the time. So I don't necessarily believe that it should become mainstream at the moment, but if in the future it can become mainstream as a thing, and people accepted it, that'd be great. However, if that never happens, I wouldn't be too bothered, personally. And I don't believe that something becoming mainstream in any way, shape, or form ruins anything, because mainstream shouldn't even be a pejorative term. People should... I don't even know why it's become a bad thing for something to become mainstream. As I said, hipsterism is a self-encroaching idea. And I think that we can pretty much enjoy something for its merits and not based on its popularity either high or low. So that's what I think. And I hope, you know, a lot of this makes sense to you. So this has been another Voice of JST with, of course, JusticeSoulTuna. See you guys later.